The world of Harry Potter is filled with several characters who populate the halls of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and are integral to the world building and appeal of the series. And today I'm going to count down my favorite characters. But before I do that, I want to address something that is sadly tied to the series and specifically its creator. All around the world, the transgender community is demonized simply for existing and trying to live their lives. There are governments and organizations who seek to remove their rights and spread hurtful propaganda and conspiracies about them, and that's wrong. J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter books, has frequently gone after transgender people, whether on social media, where she spouts horrible things about them, or using her fame and wealth to make sure laws are passed against them. I find it abhorrent for someone to use their status to take down a marginalized community. So I'm going to highlight a non-profit organization that helps those in the LGBTQ community escape persecution in places where laws exist against them. It's called Rainbow Railroad, and they operate all over the world. I gave a donation to them this week, and if you're also interested in donating, I've provided a link to their website in the description. Back to the list, here are my top 10 favorite Harry Potter characters. Neville Longbottom. Of the many students at Hogwarts, Neville goes through one of the more interesting arcs. He's initially shown to be timid and thinking less of himself, but his courage does peak out on a number of occasions. Most notable is when he tries to stop the main trio from sneaking out after dark out of loyalty to Gryffindor and his concern of what the actions might do. Throughout the series, we see him offer a piece of advice that prove incredibly helpful in the problems Harry, Ron, and Hermione are trying to solve, and we see his bravery go up as things get more dire. His refusal to join Voldemort and his followers is particularly honorable, and he more than proves his worth in the final battle at Hogwarts. Neville is an example of someone who successfully peeks out of his shell and eventually recognizes that he can be an important force in the world, and it's great seeing his evolution over the course of the series. Peeves the Poltergeist. Hogwarts is filled with ghosts who provide an additional atmosphere to the school as they float through walls and hallways. The most memorable of these is Peeves. With his wacky antics and penchant for causing trouble, he always stood out to me, and he was able to provide some comic relief, especially as the stories got darker. His relationships with the students and faculty at Hogwarts were depicted in different ways, often fooling around with many of them. However, it says something about Dumbledore that even Peeves respected him and did not cause commotion around him. He also naturally had appreciation for Fred and George Weasley, thanks to their similar sensibilities and love of pranking. And having lived at Hogwarts since it was built, he recognized the need to protect it from sinister forces. He may be a prankster, but he's not evil. Peeves was originally going to be in the movies, with Rick Mayall being cast in the role. He filmed a few scenes, but for whatever reason, those scenes were cut and have never been officially released. I don't know why Warner Brothers have kept them under lock and key, as it would have been neat to see Mayall in the role. In any case, the character still lives on in our imaginations. Gilderoy Lockhart. Harry's second defense against the dark arts teacher, there was something really amusing about his attitude in making up grand stories about his adventures. He provides a funny mockery of fame hogs who try to leech off the success of others, and what is eventually revealed about Lockhart shows how devious he is. There's also a lot of humor centered on his incompetence and the way he attempts to weasel out of events where he's required to do actual work. However, there are multiple layers to Lockhart, and those help make him one of the more memorable teachers who will slip in and out of Hogwarts in this ill-fated position. His relationship with Harry also showcases his thirst for celebrity and wanting to use him as a possible publicity tool. When he does get his eventual comeuppance, it's hilarious. I also have to praise Kenneth Branagh, who gave a fantastic performance in the film adaptation of Chamber of Secrets, showing how he could win over others with his fake charm and fanciful stories. Harry may have hated being taught by Gilderoy Lockhart, but I was certainly entertained by him. Dobby. An elf who causes quite a bit of trouble for Harry during the events of Chamber of Secrets. He's just someone trying to be helpful the only way he knows how. He definitely has his mischievous side, but he clearly is doing these things out of concern for Harry return to Hogwarts and knowing what his master, Lucius Malfoy, hopes to do with Tom Riddle's diary. When Harry helps Dobby attain his freedom from being a house elf, it's a genuinely sweet moment, with Harry recognizing that while Dobby has his annoying moments, he still means well. In a world full of darkness, Dobby does have an optimistic spirit and holds pride in his independence. When he goes to work at Hogwarts, he becomes incredibly helpful and aids Harry in certain tasks. And when later going up against the villains, Dobby more than proves his abilities. Although he would eventually meet a sad fate in Deathly Hallows, it was all part of his continued desire to help Harry in defeating those responsible for purging the world into darkness. For his film appearances, the visual effects team and his voice actor Toby Jones gave him a lot of personality. Although, funny story, a group of Russian lawyers considered suing Warner Brothers because they thought Dobby looked too much like Vladimir Putin. In the end, it never went anywhere, but it would have been one bizarre lawsuit. Among the several magical creatures Harry came across, Dobby definitely proved the most pivotal. Remus Lupin. Harry's third-year defense against the dark arts professor, Lupin was someone hiding a lot of secrets, but as we eventually find out, there's a reason for this. The connection he forms with Harry in Prisoner of Azkaban is nicely portrayed, as his teaching methods show exactly why he becomes so popular with the students at Hogwarts. He's also someone who has struggled for many years as a werewolf and has tried to keep that under control. And then, when more is revealed, we gain a great understanding of him and how much he cares about his friendships, especially the one he had with Harry's parents and with Sirius Black. David Thewlis was cast in the role for the movies and did an exceptional job of playing Lupin, depicting the multiple sides to him, and he shares some particularly good scenes with Daniel Radcliffe. We later see his important role in attempting to bring down Voldemort, and the actions he takes to get the heroes closer to victory. He proves himself an inspiring mentor to Harry, and definitely among the best teachers he had at Hogwarts. Hermione Granger. One of the main trio we follow throughout the series, Hermione was definitely the smartest, and there was something strange and endearing about her interest in the wizarding world after being accepted into Hogwarts. Of course, in her initial interactions with Harry and Ron in the Philosopher's Stone, she can come across like a big know-it-all, but there are nonetheless a lot of funny interactions between them. We particularly see this in how she prioritizes schoolwork over most things. With her smarts, we see Hermione playing a major role in solving the mysteries that occur throughout Hogwarts. She's able to have her own personality and skills separate from the boys, like when she's given the ability to time travel in Prisoner of Azkaban. The friendship that she develops along with Harry and Ron is wonderful to see unfold throughout the series, and she would often have the best advice and most understanding of some of the problems Harry has to deal with. She's a very supportive friend, which is great. Emma Watson also did a superb job in the role, and I've always thought that among the three lead actors, she gave the strongest performance in the films. She got Hermione's personality down to a T, and this is a character that was able to become more than just a mere bookworm. Ron Weasley, Harry's other closest friend, he proves a worthwhile companion, and it's easy to see why they mutually connect when they begin chatting with each other on the Hogwarts Express. In the early entries in particular, we see how Ron's already existing familiarity with the wizard world helps Harry to better understand the customs there. And throughout their adventures together, we see how they grow and deal with all the events thrown at them. Ron provides some of the funnier moments in the series too, with his responses to some of Draco Malfoy's bullying, and his confusion that schoolwork often gives him. His home life is properly explored in the series too, including his relationship with his siblings, and how he copes with often getting hand-me-downs. He's a sympathetic character, although not without his occasional flaws. Rupert Grint was very good in the role, with him having fantastic chemistry with Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson, and selling the comic relief parts. Ron is a significant part of Harry's journey, and a key member of the trio who brings plenty to the table, even with the occasional spell or two backfiring. Albus Dumbledore. The headmaster of Hogwarts, he is often there to provide some advice to Harry and watch over him. He can prove quite cunning, and seems almost ahead of the curve at points, and maybe anticipating what might happen. While not always there to provide help when Harry needs him, when Dumbledore does show up, he can usually be counted on to make things clearer, and give the needed push to help the young wizard defeat what is troubling him. Despite his elderly appearance, he has not lost his youthful spark. He's also someone who tries his best to see the good in people and possibly steer them in the right direction. Regarding his film portrayals, I personally admit to liking Richard Harris's performance over Michael Gambon's. Even though he was basically threatened into the role by his granddaughter, Harris still provides that twinkle in his eye in several scenes, and can see the wheels turning in his head as things spiral at Hogwarts. Like many other characters, we find out more about Dumbledore's past as the series progresses, which only adds to how interesting he is. Dumbledore is not only among the most powerful wizards in the world, but a genuine heroic figure. Rubious Hagrid. A kindly soul, Hagrid is extremely pivotal to Harry's story. He is the one who first brings him to Dumbledore after Harry's parents are killed by Voldemort, and he is the one who informs him that he is in fact a wizard. He also provides the necessary information to Harry about what's needed of him before going to Hogwarts. Throughout the series, we see the genuine love he has for creatures and animals of all kinds, and the joy that he gets from them. There's probably an element of relatability there, as so many of them are rejected by the overall Wizarding Society, similar to how Hagrid was often discriminated against for being a half-giant. The trust that Dumbledore puts in Hagrid also highlights what a good person he is, and it's great seeing the mutual respect they have for each other. Of course, he has his funny moments too, which further enrich the character. However, it's been proven that he would not take kindly to those who do bad things, and it's probably not a good idea to annoy or anger him. Robbie Coltrane played the role of just the right amount of sweetness and loyalty, and it's easy to see why he was so beloved among both the staff and students at Hogwarts. Before I mention my number one pick, I should bring up I did consider including Arthur and Molly Weasley, Sirius Black, and Professor McGonagall, but they did not quite make the top 10. And regarding those characters I love to hate, Draco Malfoy, Lucius Malfoy, Lord Voldemort, and Peter Pettigrew truly were despicable over the course of the series while still having their own dimensions. Although my most hateable character is Dolores Umbridge. The intention was obviously to make our blood boil, and boy did she ever, and Imelda Staunton was particularly good at portraying that through her performance. And now my number one favorite Harry Potter character is Harry Potter. I debated whether to put him at number 1 because I worried it would seem like such an easy choice to go with the title protagonist of the series, but he really was the character I most enjoyed seeing his evolution over this long saga and through each year at Hogwarts. Even before he finds out about the wizard world, he longs for that escape from an abusive household and that cupboard under the stairs. And when he finds out he's really been a wizard all along and is welcomed into that world and gets some friends, you really see that change in him and that he's finally found that place he can call home. And while not the most perfect student, Harry tries his best, although he also has a lot on his mind. Part of the fun of the series was also the sleuthing he would get into as he investigated the occurrences at Hogwarts. And then comes the return of Voldemort, and we see how that affects him. He's someone who has to deal with so much thrown at him, whether it's Draco's bullying or some school rule that prohibits him from doing something helpful. He goes through several emotions as he learns more about his parents and the history of other people in his life, but we also see the connections he makes and the positive impact friends and mentors have on him. And there is something heartwarming when he gets the opportunity to do something he loves, whether performing magic with his friends or playing Quidditch. Daniel Radcliffe also evolved his performance throughout the movies, and he really was a smart casting choice on the part of Chris Columbus. If Harry Potter was not an interesting, fully dimensional character, I don't know if the series would have been as compelling, regardless of how much magic was thrown in. Anyway, what are your favorite Harry Potter characters? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you next time.